the explosion of metal roofing in Florida, there's a lot of roofing companies that will sell you a metal roof and will talk to you about metal roof options. But I can tell you that the large majority of roofing companies in Florida don't actually know about metal roofing. Why can I say this? Well, my roofing company does more metal roofs in Florida than any other company. And then our metal roof supply company supplies other roofing companies with metal materials, and we see the way they operate, we see the way they order materials, we see the level of detail they give us on their jobs, and it's just not good enough because metal roofing is super custom. Nothing can bend into a spot. Everything needs to be bent at the correct angle for the exact right position on your roof. And since no two roofs are the same, there's a level of detail that we need to get when we're preparing for your metal roof job that a lot of roofers just aren't taking serious or don't even know about to begin with. So we thought it'd be cool to come up on this job. We're here at one of our customers' projects. He asked for help to kind of just inspect the roof, plan some things out. So we thought it'd be cool to walk you around the roof and show you what we actually do when we're preparing for your metal roof job. If you hire a roofer to do your metal roof and they don't send anyone out to do these things, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to get a sloppy install. Guarantee it. This roof's about 7,600 square feet, pretty big roof, a lot of detail. But the very first thing I'm going to do whenever I come to a metal job we have coming up is I'm going to measure for panels, because every metal panel is custom cut to run exactly the length of every individual roof slope. So you can see that the roof slope I'm standing on runs up there to the peak, but the panels for this roof are going to be a different length. So I have to take my tape measure and measure every single individual slope of this roof, write them down, and then I'll know exactly how many panels at what length I'll need. So I'm going to do that now. Now that I've measured every single roof slope, I know exactly how many panels and how long they need to be. With my chicken scratch right here, I'll turn this into a nice and clean cut sheet, we call it, later on. But now that the panels are done, the next thing I have to look at is the trim. What is trim? Trim is any metal that we deliver to your house for your metal roof that isn't the long panels themselves. What goes on the edges of your roof, what goes in the valleys on your roof, what goes along the walls, what goes at the peaks. We call all that trim. So at Metal Ops, we give our customers this nice, clean cut sheet. This page is for all your trim. There's a lot of options on this page, and we notice that a lot of roofers don't really fill out all the options. For example, bullnose is where we're going to start. Bullnose drip edge is the first piece of metal we install when we start your metal roof. Before anything else, we install the bullnose drip edge. And that's because it goes at the edges of your roof, the bottom edges of your roof, and the panels go on top of it and lock into it. But there's a lot of details with the bullnose that we have to account for. I don't know if you noticed what just happened, but this is a standard 3-inch face drip edge, meaning this part of the drip edge that hangs off the roof is 3 inches. Well, this customer apparently decided they wanted to save their gutters, which is a common thing. We don't always replace gutters when we replace the roof. Well, because there's gutter hangers in the fascia right now, if I go with a 3-inch drip edge, you can see that I'm not tight to the roof, and this needs to be tight to the roof. So I need to order a custom drip edge with a shorter face so that when I stick this in here, the gutter spikes aren't stopping the drip edge from being all elevated, and I'm sitting nice and flush on the roof. But a lot of times, guys, when they'll order this piece, they'll just order, give me 30 pieces of bullnose. They don't tell us the slope, which we're getting ready to get into. They don't tell us the size of the face or the size of the nailer, when for different details on different roofs, we may need to change those details. So because I'm here doing an inspection, I'm going to go, oh, I have gutter hangers here. Let me go with a 2-inch face so I don't have to pull the hangers out and put them back in through my new metal, and everything just sits nice and easy in there. The next detail we need to look at as far as bullnose drip edge is concerned is the angle of this bend right here. So this drip edge I'm holding in my hand, it's a 90-degree bend. It's bent on a 90. This roof is on a 512 and the fascia is straight. And watch what happens when I try to install this drip edge. We need this nailer to be flush with the roof so that the panels come down. There's no bumps like this. It's just nice and flat with the roof line. But look at this big gap we have here. Look at what this creates. And that's because this fascia is flushed or straight to the ground, we now have a gap here because we can't bend this metal on a 90-degree bend. we need to bend it with the slope of this roof. But this is a detail that a lot of roofers miss, and they're installing drip edge hanging off the edge, and they only have 1 inch to nail this piece. Whereas if they ordered the drip edge with the slope of the roof, you can see that that's not a 90-degree angle. Now look how nice and tight that piece of metal is. And now I've got the full length of the nailer over top of the plywood. It's nice and flush, and I have no gap here, which means it's a stronger roof system overall. This drip edge is what the panel's attached to all the way around your house. So if this is nice and tight, your roof's nice and tight. And now here we are at this little eyebrow dormer. This is called a radius panel, or I should say the panel we need to put here is called a radius panel. So obviously this is a custom panel that we have to make in a special machine. So I need to take measurements to figure out the radius of this half circle. So I'm gonna tack a nail where the panel's gonna end, flush to here so that I can get the elevation or the radius. I'm not even really sure what a radius is. I'm just speaking roofing language. Okay, 9 1/4. So now that I know the radius, I just think it's the height, whatever. I'm just a roofer. Now that I know the radius is 9 1/4, I know what angle our custom radius panels have to carry. And now all I have to do is run a string line from here to here up on the roof, measure it, and now I know the surface area length so that we can bend these custom panels for this job. A lot of roofers don't even know that we can bend our panels on a radius like this, and they're just gonna take a big 4x10 flat sheet and kind of smush it in here just to cover this section of metal, when you could go the extra mile and actually get custom cut panels made just for this little detail. Walking around the roof, I'm also looking for roof penetration. The little holes in the roof where your gooseneck vents or your exhaust vents stick out of the roof. Well, we replace them when we give you a new roof. So as I'm walking around, I'm counting the amount of both exhaust vents and pipe stacks that are sticking out of your roof, and I'm jotting them down. But the next thing I wanted to get into was ridge ventilation or attic ventilation or solar powered attic ventilation. There's multiple ways to ventilate your attic, and you should ventilate your attic. But when I'm accounting for all my trim pieces on this metal job, I need to know what's the ventilation method so I can send the appropriate metal for it. For example, if we were installing a solar-powered attic fan here, I would have a special flashing kit for that attic fan. In this case, on this house, we're doing ridge ventilations. If you look real close, you can see that at the peak here, the plywood is not closed. It's open about 2.5 inches at the ridge, and that's so that we can install a vented ridge cap here so that air can flow in through the soffits in the attic and get out of the roof here. But that's a special piece of metal. We put a perforated Z-bar here that I'll need to account for on the order so that we can properly install ridge vents in this area. Here's another detail that I can't pick up from a satellite measurement. I need to come out to the job and see. Okay, I have a big skylight hole here. It's going to be a 2 foot by 4 foot skylight. The customer here is installing an 1.5 inch snap block standing seam system. So the standing seams are going to raise up 1.5 inches. I know that whenever we're installing a skylight, we have to build a curb of wood around the frame of the skylight, and that's what the skylight sits into. But then how do we keep the water out from getting inside the skylight? Well, that's where flashing comes in. When we build a curb on an 1.5 inch standing seam system, we're going to build it out of 2x6s because that's adequate for flashing. So I'm going to have a 2x6 on this whole 2 by 4 foot frame for the skylight, and then I have to flash it, and there's a special flashing kit for that. So I'm going to account for that in the order. A special custom flashing kit to go around a 2 by 4 skylight on an 1.5 inch standing seam roof. But I'd never be able to pick that up from a roof report, and I wouldn't be able to send you the correct metal if you don't tell me that this is here. One of the most important details when I'm walking a roof preparing for a metal job is right here. Everywhere where a roof comes in contact with a wall. And as you can see here, there's a piece of metal. We call that flashing. Half of the metal's on the roof, half of the metal's on the wall at a 90-degree bend. Flashing keeps all the water out of your house at these roof-to-wall joints, which is a very common place for roofs to leak. So good, the flashing will keep all the water out of this joint. But what this flashing's not doing well, and we do differently, is it's not helping keep water out that comes from above. So as rainwater comes down this wall, it's going to want to hit this lip and get in your house. And the only way we're stopping the water when it's done like this from getting in your house is 7 tubes of caulk, which we don't like that. Not to mention these screws are hideous. So we don't like this detail, and we're gonna go over there and show you how we're gonna plan to do this. But when we're looking at flashings, it depends what the existing wall material is. There's different methods to do wall flashings when you have wood siding, vinyl siding, maybe you have James Hardie fiber cement siding, maybe you have stucco, maybe you have stone. So depending on the existing wall material will determine how we're gonna flash your walls. And again, this is another detail a lot of roofers miss because they're not true experts in metal roofing. Here's how we're gonna do it on this job. Just so you can envision what it's gonna look like. The panels get installed first, then we install this Z-bar with sealant. I put it on earlier for a demonstration. It's already stuck. That's what keeps water from getting in here. But then next we have to install the flashing, and it goes like so. But notice I don't have that ugly lip here, and I'm not gonna put ugly screws here that you're gonna be able to see forever because I have one more piece to install. We're gonna grind a line in the stucco 1 inch deep, and then we're gonna stick another piece of metal, a second piece of metal, in the wall like so. You won't be able to see this groove because this is the part that goes inside the stucco. And now we have a nice clean finish here, no exposed fasteners. And as water comes down the wall, it gets directed on the flashing and off the roof. But this type of flashing or this flashing method only works with stucco walls. So I needed to come out, inspect the job and see what we're dealing with before I made a plan on how we're gonna flash the walls. And that's why site inspections are, I would say, required. Stumbled upon another detail that we didn't have picked up in our satellite roof report, and it's that the roof slope I'm standing on is at a different slope than this roof slope, and I can't install one continuous panel from the bottom there all the way to here because I have this roof slope and I can't just bend the panel in place. There is one panel we're able to do this. We're able to cut the seam and bend the panel at this transition, but that's 1.5 inches mechanical, or really any mechanical system, and this customer's installing 1.5 inch snap block. So because I know that, we're gonna have to put a custom transition piece in here where we'll run our panels from the bottom of the roof to here, we'll stop them, we'll cut them, and then we'll put a piece of metal that goes on this roof and over top of these lower panels, and then we'll install a short panel over top of that. So that's the detail we have to do in the slope transition because it's 2 different pitches and because of the panel we're installing here. But I wouldn't have known that because on my roof report, it actually doesn't pick up this pitch change because it's a very small pitch change, but it's still there. So it's the only way to install this panel in this area. So here's a detail only the pros would pick up, and not even the pros, really just people that truly care about the job they're doing and they want to make things look good for their customer. So I brought up before, on these wall details where we have stucco, we're going to install our flashing, and then we're going to install that second piece that gets embedded in the stucco. Really struggling under this little area with nothing actually nailed, holding it in place so you can see. But look how I only have like 2 inches of stucco sticking up at the top of there. That's going to look goofy. It's just not going to look right. It's going to change the look of the front of this building. So what I can do, because metal's all custom, the standard measurement on a wall flashing right here, the part that goes on the wall, is 4 inches. But I don't need it to be 4 inches. I can shrink it by 1.5 inches so that I bring all that wall detail, all that metal along the wall down so it looks more natural and we're not hiding all this stucco here and nobody's going to complain, and it's still going to look good. It's still going to keep water out of the house. But that's just an extra step to make sure that the job's aesthetic at the end. Only something the pros would pick up. So this community clubhouse behind me, the one we just measured, is about 7,200 square feet. There's a lot of different roof slopes. There's a lot of special details. There's a lot of things that we as roofers have to take into consideration before we start this metal project. But there's a lot of roofers out there that will send a sales rep to your home or even sell you and sign you on a contract over the internet for a metal roof. And you won't see anybody show up to your house until it's time to start the job. You can guarantee that this is the case, that you're not going to get a quality metal roof job because as you install all the considerations you take, all the details, all the custom pieces, it's super important that somebody does the inspection to prepare for your metal roof job. So ask these questions of your roofer to get ready to hire you, especially if it's a metal roof. How are you going to prepare for my job? What kind of custom details are on that? ask these questions because you want to weed out all the roofers that either don't care enough or don't have the knowledge to be able to do a metal roof.